stronger from a lot of hardliners that they do not want to see the status quo continue. That likely means they're going to be looking and have their eye on someone else, perhaps Byron Donalds or another one of the hardline Republicans who are running, hoping that they can get the 217 they need on the floor. Again, it is such a difficult margin because you can only afford to lose a handful of Republican members, just about 4 members, Phil.
Lauren Fox, thank you very much. I wish I could say this is almost over for you, but I don't think it is.
Well, the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, it is getting far worse. The near constant bombing has left one hospital, quote, overwhelmed with bodies, low on electricity. It has forced its doctors to operate without morphine.
Story.
We start with breaking news for you this evening. We are just about 3 miles from the Gaza border.
And breaking through the noise.
Interesting conversation about where we are in America right now.
The day's biggest stories.
What we have been seeing in Israel is
the night's most essential report.
It's not about what I believe, it's about whether there is evidence.
This is the new CNN Prime Time. Starting at 7 on CNN.
Remember, from 203, as more information came in and more detail was coming out. This morning, the family of the first 2 hostages released, 2 Americans, spoke out for the first time.
We don't have the privilege to be happy or to celebrate. We don't have the privilege to mourn. We cannot put it aside. We cannot rest. This is getting Judith and Natalie back was not the end, it's the beginning.
All right, again, some 222 hostages, as many as 222. This would be their 17th day in captivity. To give you a sense of what Kate was talking about right there, some of these cross-border altercations are taking place right down here. This is an Israeli kibbutz, Kisufim. Just across the border from there is where some of that activity, that ground activity, has taken place. And while that is happening, there has been aid getting into Gaza from Egypt. This is Egypt going across the border right here, the Rafah crossing. You can see where some explosions took place before this aid started getting through. And we have some video of the aid trucks. You can see right here, some 34 through the end of yesterday. The intention is to keep them trickling through over however long they can. Of course, there are relief officials who say the numbers that is getting in, as good as it is to have the border open, it is merely a trickle, a drop in the bucket of what is needed there. All right, we are everywhere on the ground that we need to be. Our Sarah Sider right here in Jerusalem, Nick Robertson and Synagogue just outside of Gaza. Let's go first to our partner, Sarah Sider in Jerusalem. Sarah.
Yeah, look, here in Jerusalem it has been very quiet, eerily so. People are prepared for war, and they know that a ground offensive is likely coming, and they know that that is going to mean more deaths to Israelis, the soldiers, and more deaths to those who are in Gaza. So it is a somber time, but there are people going about their business as best they can here in Jerusalem. We also heard overnight from several different people who are familiar with what is going on in Gaza, and they talk about that aid that you mentioned, that there are mostly medical supplies, food, and water that has been brought in. But if you look at the numbers, normally there are 7,200 truckloads that go into Gaza during normal times. There have only been 34 over the past couple of days, and so it shows you just how much is coming in. It is just not enough for the population of 1.3, 1.4 million people who are in the part of Gaza they were supposed to evacuate. Not all of them have evacuated because the hospitals, many of the people in the hospitals simply can't evacuate, and the doctors are saying they will not evacuate unless their patients can. I want to go now to my colleague Nick Robertson, where overnight and over the weekend we spoke quite a bit. Nick, you had said something that I hadn't heard you say before, that that overnight there was a bombing like you had never heard before, a bombardment in Gaza. Can you give us some sense of what you are seeing today and what you saw overnight?
We've heard some artillery shells being fired by the IDF going into Gaza, the odd missile explosion, but nothing on the scale of what we witnessed last night, which was repetitive, sometimes 10 missiles in 10 minutes, multiple explosions, the detonations so heavy, perhaps because they were close to us, that we could feel this building and hear the windows and doors shake here, and I was listening to them on the buildings near us here shake as well with the percussions from those impacts. Today it is somewhat quieter. That said, just as we were coming on air, we took cover because there was an incoming missile alert. Rockets were launched from Gaza towards this town. The Iron Dome intercepted them as best we could hear. It was quite a short salvo, but it does seem to again indicate a cycle that we've seen in recent days, that when the IDF strikes drop off, then you can expect a salvo of rockets or more to come out of Gaza on the days and the times when that bombing is very heavy. The strikes into Gaza are very heavy, then you don't get any missiles being fired out by Gaza or by Hamas rather, or Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and that's where we seem to be right now. It's a day where there's not as much IDF fire going into Gaza as last night.
All right, I think it is remarkable just to let people know how huge and sustained that bombardment was, where you can see and hear the rattling of some of the buildings on the other side of the border. I do want to ask you about timing here and what you're hearing about the ground offensive. We heard from Ehud Barak, the former Israeli Prime Minister and former Defense Minister, who talked to our Fareed Zakaria over the weekend, and he said that he believed that ground offensive was going to happen in the next few days, and said that he believed it could take weeks when the IDF actually goes into Gaza to do the job that they had planned to do, trying to rid Gaza of Hamas. Have you gotten any sense, just from the troops on the ground that you're seeing, or from any of your contacts, as to when they think this ground offensive may happen?
I think the decision on it is very fluid, and that's because of the international pressure. There's a big and broad conversation that's going on about humanitarian aid in for the release of hostages. That seems to be the equation. But from an Israeli government perspective, when aid goes into Gaza, that goes, and some of it ends up with Hamas and strengthens their position at a time when Israel is trying to effect a siege on Gaza to weaken Hamas. So there's that part of the equation. What we see in terms of troops along the border area, it seems very much that they are poised and could move to an incursion force posture very, very quickly. Talking to some of the soldiers, though, they describe a situation where they've been told to be ready, and then they're told not now, and then be ready again, and not now. Again, people who've been through this before, veterans of the IDF, say, look, we've experienced this sort of hurry up and wait before, and to a degree that is a soldier's life. Follow orders, hurry up and wait, but they say realistically they can wait a long time, and while they're waiting, they're doing drills, they're doing training, they're preparing. But it is that international pressure on Israel that is growing to allow a humanitarian pause that is really going to be very, very difficult for Prime Minister Netanyahu to come to that final conclusion about when to go for an incursion. To a degree, we're told it's a military decision, and that's why I say it's fluid. The forces are there. It seems to me at the moment this is very, very likely. Precisely when, we don't know, and events on the ground play out. But there's always this perception that because Hamas took so many hostages, they were always going to use the hostages as a leverage, however they could, to prevent attacks on them. And potentially that's also what we're seeing play out here.
Yeah, Nick Robertson, thank you so much for that view on the ground. You are very, very close to Gaza in Sderot. I think the closest point is only 2,700 feet from Gaza. I appreciate all your reporting that you've been doing from there. And I'm going to toss it back to Kate.
All right. Sarah, thank you so much. Sources tell CNN the White House, behind the scenes, is pushing for Israel to delay that imminent ground incursion in Gaza, hoping to get more hostages released ahead of time. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is at the Pentagon with more reporting on this. Natasha, lay out what you're hearing. The Israeli official denied that the United States is seeking any sort of delay, but what are you hearing?
Yeah, Kate, well, what Nick was just laying out there, this international pressure, it is growing on Israel. And what we have been told, according to my colleague Alex Marquardt, is that the U.S. has been urging Israel to delay a ground invasion of Gaza in order to give Qatar and Hamas the opportunity to potentially negotiate the release of even more hostages that are being held in Gaza, as well as allow more humanitarian aid, including medical supplies and other equipment, to flow into Gaza before boots are actually put on the ground in Gaza by the Israelis. Now, as you mentioned, the Israelis are denying that the White House has been putting any kind of pressure on them. They told us in a statement that they have direct communications with the United States, including important consultations, but that the idea that the U.S. is pressuring them in any way is not true. However, the U.S. has said multiple times that they do want to see humanitarian aid flow into Gaza. They want to see more prisoners released because, of course, there are several Americans who are being held in Gaza by Hamas. And so the U.S. wants to see this process play out. And what we're told is that the Qataris, they have been a key intermediary here with Hamas to try to get those talks flowing. The hope is that of those, 200 plus hostages that are now believed to be being held by Hamas inside Gaza, there could be some additional forward momentum in getting many of them released, if not all of them. That is the hope right now. A ground incursion could make that exceedingly difficult, Kate.
Natasha, thanks for the reporting. John?
All right, with us now is retired U.S. Army Major Mike Lyons. And Major, another reason the U.S. may be pushing Israel to delay, and you can see Israel on the map right here, is so the U.S. can have more time to protect U.S. interests, U.S. troops in the region. Where are those U.S. troops?
U.S. troops currently in the Red Sea here along on the destroyer in the USS Kearney. Then also we have ground troops here inside of Syria protecting some of our oil, and then also in the northern part of Iraq. And we've seen them come under attack here. We've had to protect them. The drones, the Iranians are sending drones after those, so they're fighting back. That's really why you're seeing the carrier strike groups in there, making sure those U.S. troops are safe.
Yeah, we have a U.S. carrier strike group too, well headed right there in the Mediterranean. Another development overnight, we did learn that there have been some Israeli raids, some ground activity, direct confrontation between Israelis and Hamas inside Gaza, right around here. This is a kibbutzim, and here is Khan Yunis. Somewhere between here, there was that skirmish. What's Israel doing here?
John, I think a couple things. First of all, the main line of effort remains the airstrikes. However, the ground forces are using these raids to do primarily two things. Number one, catch any Hamas fighters that are there, kill them, for example, and also go after the tunnel system that's there. Gain intelligence on what's going on the ground. Right now, this is an area that Israel hasn't focused on. It doesn't have a lot of knowledge about what's actually going on across that border here. And then if you also know strategically, it's going to basically cut Gaza in half. And it's going to shape the battlefield for this ground incursion and what's going to come. I think they're going to isolate the southern area. They're going to leave that for civilians. They're going to make that, say, a no-fire zone, and their main line of effort will be clearly in this northern part of Gaza.
I want to talk about what they're doing from the air right now. This is a map that shows some of the areas that were hit in Gaza up until the 17th. So actually only as recently as 1 week ago. There have been more airstrikes since then. What is Israel doing from the air now, and how does it coordinate with the ground operation?
Israeli Defense Forces, it's reporting they're going specifically after tunnels, observation posts, anti-tank capabilities. So they didn't have that prior. The Hamas fighters have that capability right now. And then lastly, any known command and control center. So if you look in all these places, these are the kind of spots that if they can cut the Hamas communications off, then as this time goes on, I think there's really no rush to start this ground incursion. I think they're going to continue to bomb from the sky. Now, that won't solve the problem. It won't necessarily cause the war to end. But the bottom line is it'll put them at such a disadvantage that they'll be really forced. Once the ground inversion comes in, then they'll be in much better shape.
And of course, all of these areas where you can see have been intense targets. You can't imagine that they are connected to each other through this tunnel system that we've seen. Extensive tunnel system. This was what the IDF said the tunnel system looked like in 2021. They periodically try to destroy it, it gets rebuilt, but you can see how extensive it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the primary mission of that ground attack military-wise. Is going to have to destroy that system. That will take months over time. There's no question. They're not going to do that. They know their hostages potentially are in there. And they're not just fighting Hamas. There's other Palestinian militia forces that are using those tunnel systems as well. So part of that, again, that air platform, that air systems is to try to break up all those command and control structures in those tunnel systems.
And then one piece of new information we got this morning. This is a new weapon system that we are told Israel is using for the first time. It's called either the Steel Sting or the Iron Sting, depending on the translation. And the idea is that it's more lethal but more localized in what it can destroy. Why would that be important?
Well, it's looking like it's going to go deep targets, right? We know that tunnel system is underground. I think this is the kind of system that will allow them to really focus on specifically just those tunnel systems when they see them. So part of those raids, they're figuring out where the entrance are, where they're coming from, all those things that go with that. This is going to allow them to target those systems and start shutting those tunnel systems down.
All right, Major Mike Lyons, always great to have you here. Thank you, as always, so much for your expertise. Kate?
Coming up for us, the IDF has now updated the number of people it is believed that Hamas kidnapped and took hostage on October 7th, now believing the number is 222 people. We're going to speak to the father of one of those hostages next. Plus, aid is moving into Gaza once again. Over the weekend, more than 30 trucks were able to cross the Rafah entrance, the Rafah gate. The UN Relief Agency, though, saying now the need for fuel is almost as urgent as the need for food and water in Gaza. The latest on that humanitarian crisis is coming up. Back in the United States, Congress has now reached day 20 without a Speaker of the House. After Jim Jordan's attempt imploded, there are now 9 Republicans who want the job. The big moment for Republicans going behind closed doors once again today. I have an update for you.
Type 2 diabetes? Discover the Ozempic Trizone. Ozempic! I got the power of 3. I lowered my A1C, CV risk, and lost some weight. In studies, the majority of people reached an A1C under 7 and maintained it.
I'm under 7.
Ozempic lowers the risk of major cardiovascular events such as stroke, heart attack, or death in adults also with known heart disease. I'm lowering my risk. Adults lost up to 14 pounds.
I lost some weight.
Ozempic isn't for people with type 1 diabetes. Don't share needles or pens or reuse needles. Don't take Ozempic if you or your family ever had medullary thyroid cancer or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2 or if allergic to it. Stop Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Gallbladder problems may occur. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes. Taking Ozempic with a sulfonylurea or insulin may increase low blood sugar risk. Side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea may lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems. Living with type 2 diabetes?
Ask about the power of 3 with Ozempic. When you're looking for answers, it's good to have help. Because the right information at the right time may make all the difference. At Humana, we know that's especially true when you're looking for a Medicare supplement insurance plan. That's why we're offering 7 things every Medicare supplement should have. It's yours free, just for calling the number on your screen. And when you call, a knowledgeable licensed agent producer can answer any questions you have and help you choose the plan that's right for you. The call is free and there's no obligation. You see, Medicare covers only about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. The rest is up to you. That's why so many people purchase Medicare supplement insurance plans like those offered by Humana. They're designed to help you save money and pay some of the costs Medicare doesn't. Depending on the Medicare supplement plan you select, you could have no deductibles or co-payments for doctor visits, hospital stays, emergency care, and more. You can keep the doctors you have now, ones you know and trust, with no referrals needed. Plus, you can get medical care anywhere in the country, even when you're traveling. With Humana, you get a competitive monthly premium and personalized service from a healthcare partner working to make healthcare simpler and easier for you. You can choose from a wide range of standardized plans. Each one is designed to work seamlessly with Medicare and help save you money. So how do you find the plan that's right for you? One that fits your needs and your budget. Call Humana now at the number on your screen for this free guide. It's just one of the ways that Humana is making healthcare simpler. And when you call, a knowledgeable licensed agent producer can answer any questions you have and help you choose the plan that's right for you. The call is free and there's no obligation. You know Medicare won't cover all your medical costs, so call now and see why a Medicare supplement plan from a company like Humana just might be the answer.
With thyroid eye disease, I hid from the camera, and I wanted to hide from the world. For years, I thought my TED was beyond help. But then, I asked my doctor about Tepezza.
Tepezza is the only medicine that treats TED at the source, not just the symptoms. In a clinical study, more than 8 out of 10 patients taking Tepezza had less eye bulging. Tepezza is an infusion and may cause infusion reactions. Tell your doctor right away if you experience high blood pressure, fast heartbeat, shortness of breath, or muscle pain. Before treatment, tell your doctor if you have diabetes, IBD, or are pregnant or planning to become pregnant. Tepezza may raise blood sugar and may worsen IBD. Tepezza may cause severe hearing problems, which may be permanent.
Now, I'm ready to be seen again.
Visit mytepezza.com to find a TED eye specialist and to see Bridget's before and after photos.
This morning, the IDF released a new number for people who have been kidnapped inside Israel. There could be as many as 222 hostages. Now, inside Gaza, this would be their 17th day in captivity. This number keeps on going up. Inside Gaza itself, the Palestinian Health Ministry there, which is run by Hamas, claims that 12 hospitals and 32 medical centers are out of service after Israeli airstrikes and because of fuel depletion. Now, some aid has been getting through the Rafah crossing. This is the road in. This is the Rafah crossing right here. And there have been as many as 34 aid trucks. Here's some video of them that have been getting through over the weekend. And that aid is expected to continue. We don't have an update from today if any trucks have been through today, but the expectation is there will be still, even with these few trucks getting in, it does not meet the need, international aid workers say. CNN Salma Abdulaziz joins us now with what is needed inside Gaza. Salma.
Yes, and John, even if those trucks do come into Gaza, the Strip is really operating at a deficit. You have to remember that dozens of trucks a day were going in before the conflict because a large portion of the Gaza Strip depends on humanitarian aid. That was the reality before this latest escalation. So all of that aid is going to be used up extremely quickly, and it's not even going to fill that huge gap, that huge ocean of need on the ground. And you have to remember these trucks are supposed to distribute aid under extremely difficult circumstances. As you mentioned, 12 hospitals already out of service because there is no fuel. So how are they going to distribute that aid? How far into the Gaza Strip can they go without gas? And as airstrikes continue to rain down, the Israeli military says it is intensifying airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. It says to target Hamas, but the reality, the horror that spells out for the 2 million people trapped in that war zone, you'll remember, of course, it is sealed off, all borders closed, is absolutely unfathomable, John. I want to bring you one image that just explains how horrifying this is, and I do warn our viewers, it is extremely graphic, but it shows young children, little kids, who have been killed in this fighting, and you can see that there's writing on their legs. Their parents, their family members are scribbling their names, the names of their children, on their legs, just so that they could find the bodies of their children so that they could bury them. That's how horrific the situation is. There is no guarantee you can bury or find your dead child right now in the Gaza Strip. Rights groups are appealing. They're calling for a ceasefire. They say that a pause is needed to allow aid in, to get civilians into a safe place, to create a humanitarian zone of some kind. But Israel's military has been clear that there will be no quiet for now. They seem to be pushing forward into that next phase, potentially a ground incursion.
Salma Abdulaziz, thank you so much for your reporting on this. Kate?
An update on the hostage crisis now. An Israeli official said that there will be no ceasefire in Gaza as U.S. and Qatari officials continue to work to try to free hostages taken by Hamas. The update from the IDF on the scope of the hostage crisis is this. They now believe 222 people were kidnapped, taken hostage in the October 7th attack by Hamas. That is a higher number of people than what has last publicly been stated. On Friday, Hamas released 2 hostages. You see an image here. 2 Americans, Judith and Natalie Ranan. 10 American civilians who were in Israel remain unaccounted for. The State Department believes some of them may be hostages. This weekend, Secretary of State Tony Blinken said that the United States is working to get every hostage freed and home. Listen.
And we're hopeful that more are released, but the bottom line is this: they need to be released, each and every one of them, now, unconditionally. We don't know why Hamas chose to release Natalie and Judith first. I use the word first advisedly because, again, we're hopeful that more follow. This is something we're engaged in virtually round the clock.
And families are also working on this virtually around the clock. Joining us right now is Jonathan Deckelchen. His son Sagi was kidnapped and taken by Hamas during the terror attack. Jonathan, thank you for taking the time. On Natalie and Judith, first and foremost, how did it feel for you, or how did it hit you or impact you when you first heard that they were released and saw those images?
Well, I was thrilled for their families, honestly. It must be a wonderful feeling for them, and allowing them to return to their lives, and I hope not too scarred by the experience. As far as the other hostages, I'm not sure that it means very much at all. There's no question that Hamas has and will continue to employ a kind of psychological warfare, not just on the families of the hostages, but all Israelis and perhaps beyond. Anyone with a heart, anyone with any kind of humanity in them. So it's not necessarily a signal of anything, but again, I don't think any human being could be anything other than thrilled for the Ramadan family.
And there's so many, I'm sure, feelings fighting inside of you at all times, because as soon as of course, all you're thinking about is Sagi, as well as being thrilled for the Ramadan family. And hearing from Tony Blinken that they don't know why Natalie and Judith were released first, hearing from even the Ramadan family that they don't know why they were released first. I mean, what does this then have you thinking about Sagi?
Well, it has me thinking that there's always hope. We know, the things that we know about Sagi is that he's an incredibly strong person. I'm sure what's holding him, keeping his spirits up, is that he has two beautiful little daughters and a wife in her 7th month of pregnancy, a family, a community, a kibbutz community that's waiting for him to come home. And I'm sure he knows that we will do anything and then some to get him and the rest of the hostages back.
You mentioned his wife, your daughter-in-law, and their 2 children. There's 6, the two daughters, 6 and 3 is I think what I've heard you say before. And as you mentioned, your daughter-in-law is pregnant, but they also lived through the terror of what they were put through as well, even beyond losing, having Sagi kidnapped and taken. How is your daughter-in-law doing right now? How are your granddaughters?
I think they're doing as best as they can, as expected. I have another daughter with her husband and young boys around the same age as those granddaughters, who also lived through it. I mean, just imagine, 200 bloodthirsty, savage terrorists rampaging through your neighborhood, through your home, and killing everything in their path, taking captive everything in their path. Right outside your door, the only thing between you and death, and at the hands of these Hamas terrorists, is a armored door that you're praying will hold while they shoot at it, try to pry it open, try to burn your house down around you in order to either asphyxiate you or get you out when they can then execute you. So under those circumstances, I think they're doing okay, but this is going to be a very long road for all of them. And we're working towards that road to recovery with their dad and all of the other hostages by their side.
I've been impressed. You've spoken so eloquently about how complicated this whole horrible thing is. I mean, you've spoken so eloquently about what you're going through, along with so many other families. When you hear that the U.S. government has been behind the scenes kind of pressed Israel to delay or slow the start of a ground incursion in hopes of getting more hostages out, What do you think of that? Are you torn by this?
Yeah, it's kind of excruciating, honestly, because on the one hand, you know, I was a soldier for long enough to know that every bomb that falls, every bomb that falls from the sky or is shot from an artillery gun in Israel endangers all of the hostages, including my son, when it detonates somewhere in the Gaza Strip. So that in and of itself is terrifying. On the other hand, we would like to reconstitute our lives at some point in these shattered and burnt out communities. And the only way that can ever happen, and the only way, quite honestly, that the people of Gaza, the same people that we see as well suffering terribly, the only way they have a future is to eradicate Hamas as a governing, certainly as a governing body over a dictatorial governing body. So and I'm sure all of the other families of the hostages, American and otherwise, are living this dilemma every hour. Because there are two truths, and this is especially true for the people like myself who live in the border communities. You know, that's our home. It's not just a hostage-taking situation. Our homes were invaded, destroyed, in the most barbaric ways. And those are our people there. So the rage is there, and I know we need to be cautious about our rage. As President Biden said, and he was right. But all that being said, you know, these two things remain true. We desperately want our sons, daughters, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters safe in return to live their dreams, and maybe our dreams as well. But October 7th was absolute proof. So if anyone with a brain in their head that Hamas is not the answer for the Palestinian people, and certainly as long as Hamas exists and organizations like it, there really is no hope for peace for me and my neighbors, you know, a mile and a half away.
Jonathan Deckelchen, thank you, Jonathan. John.
And Kate, an update. We just learned, CNN did, from U.S. officials that they still believe there are 10 Americans unaccounted for. It's unclear whether they are part of the 222 hostages the IDF says could be in Gaza now in their 17th day. And one other thing, the U.S. does not know the condition of whatever American hostages might be being held in Gaza. Other news, a 27-year-old Israeli-American is living her life here, leaving her life here in the United States to volunteer as a medic in Israel. And new reporting this morning on where the eternal race for House Speaker is going at this moment. 3 weeks into the chaos, how close is it to a resolution?
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines. The day's biggest stories. The night's most essential reporting. This is the new CNN Prime Time. Weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
Meet the Jennifers. Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. Each planning their future through the Chase mobile app. Gen X is planning a summer in Portugal with some help from JP Morgan Wealth Plan. Let's go, Whiskers. Gen Y is working with a banker to budget for her birthday. You only turned 30 once. And Gen Z, her credit's golden. Hello, new apartment. 3 gens getting ahead with Chase. Solutions that grow with you. One bank for now, for later, for life. Chase, make more of what's yours.
What you're seeing today is Dr. Renee Badreau completing a successful eye surgery. And the dedicated hours of training in virtual reality that helped make it happen. Allowing her to practice surgical techniques, to increase access to quality care through immersive environments. These are the ways surgeons with Fundamental VR and Orbis are using the metaverse today.
This or that, this or that. You can do this, and you that. You can do this, and you that. You can do this, and
Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Get started today at Angie.com.
sleep more deeply, and wake up rejuvenated. Purple Mattress's exclusive Gel Flex rib draws away heat, relieves pressure, and instantly adapts. Sleep better. Live Purple. Visit purple.com or a mattress store near you.
RSV can severely affect the lungs and lower airways.
But I'm protected with Arexvy.
Arexvy is a vaccine used to prevent lower respiratory disease from RSV in people 60 years old. RSV can be serious for those over 60, including those with asthma, diabetes, COPD, and certain other conditions.
But I'm protected.
Arexvy is proven to be over 82% effective in preventing lower respiratory disease from RSV and over 94% effective in those with these health conditions. Arexvy does not protect everyone and is not for those with severe allergic reactions to its ingredients. Those with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most common side effects are injection site pain, fatigue, muscle pain, headache, and joint pain.
I chose Arexvy.
RSV, make it Arexvy.
Create a backyard that's out of this world. Right now, save $50 on the MS-250 chainsaw. Real steel. Find yours.
You want to see a trick?
Sure.
I can make anything you want appear on that TV.
Superheroes.
Superheroes.
Well, cute animals.
Cute animals.
Wizards.
Wizards. Would you like my trick?
I saw the remote.
With you, keeping the whole family entertained. Search endless content with the magical Ignite TV voice remote. Rogers, with you all the way.
So stressed out. I am so stressed out. I just got this bonus and I got this influx of cash. I gotta get this 401k. Emily's going to college in 9 years. My neighbor Lisa said, "Bill, we got you." At Facet Wealth, we help with every financial decision, from investing that work bonus to saving for Emily's college fund. Our dedicated CFP professionals work with you one-on-one to provide personalized financial planning for your entire life.
To unlock insights about your financial health, check your financial wellness score at Facet.com.
I'm Melanie Zanona in Washington, and this is CNN.
So the latest move, if you will, as the House of Representatives remains paralyzed, is Republicans are headed behind closed doors once again. Now, 9 candidates are vying for the job of Speaker, but the reality remains the exact same for all of them as it did for Jim Jordan before them. It is not clear if any of them or anyone can get the 217 votes needed to actually win the gavel. CNN's Lauren Fox on Capitol Hill for us. So, Lauren, what are you hearing and where do things stand now with these 9 people who would like to be Speaker?
Yeah, as you can see, Kate, from the fact that there are 9 candidates vying for this job, the race is really wide open. I think the expectation is that Representative Tom Emmer, who is the majority whip, probably has the lead in some significant ways, one of which is that he has the infrastructure. The other piece of that is the fact that he got the endorsement from former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who said he was the guy for the job because he has the experience and that this is not a moment to have a rookie trying to figure out how to run the House Republican Conference, given the defections and divisions you have seen up until this point. Now, tonight, there's going to be a candidate forum for these 9 members to make their pitch to their Republican colleagues behind closed doors. Then tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the vote begins. Now, that is going to happen in a closed-door session. They're going to try to get a speaker designee. But, Kate, again, it's not clear that whoever emerges from that meeting is going to be able to go to the floor and get the 217 votes that's required to become the Speaker of the House. Kate?
All righty. Good to see you, Lauren. Talk to you soon. John.
All right, with us now, CNN senior political analyst and senior editor for The Atlantic, Ron Brownstein. I want to start with Tom Emmer, whom Lauren was just talking about there, the House Majority Whip, who may be the frontrunner. One peculiar factoid about Emmer, he actually voted to certify the 2020 election, which is something none other of those leading candidates for Speaker have done. Certainly Jim Jordan didn't, Ron. So how will that play out?
Well, look, I mean, we saw, Tom, good morning. First of all, we saw that in the case of Jordan, 90% of House Republicans were willing to elevate to the speakership the member of Congress who not only perhaps most vociferously supported, but most extensively participated in Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election. Now we will see whether voting to certify Joe Biden's victory, in effect, is disqualifying in a Republican conference. It is worth noting that even though Emmer voted to certify the result, John, he joined the lawsuit. You'll remember the long shot lawsuit from the state of Texas seeking to overturn the election results in 4 states. 105 House Republicans signed on to a brief supporting that. He was one of them, as was Austin Scott, the other member who voted to certify and is seeking the speakership. So there really is no one in this race who did not in some way deny the validity of Joe Biden's victory in 2020. But even so, voting to certify is generating opposition to Emmer from the MAGA wing of supporters of Trump. We saw it in Steve Bannon's show last week. Can he overcome that? Is it now a scarlet letter in the Republican conference to have certified Joe Biden's victory in 2020?
So 3 weeks into this, Ron, the Democrats have been on the sidelines watching and waiting. There are those cynics among us who have said there's never going to be a compromise solution where Democrats and Republicans join together to put someone in the speaker's chair who can run things. But how much closer is it to the possibility that there might be something done that involves Democratic votes?
Yeah, I mean, look, the longer this goes on, the more unprecedented scenarios come into play. I mean, first of all, we are in an unprecedented scenario in that we've never had a successful motion to, in effect, fire the speaker by vacating the chair. And then we've seen the breakdown of the traditional party order. I mean, you can vote, people can vote against their party on individual issues, but in the House, you are supposed to vote with your party on the organization of the chamber. And the notion that the person who received the most votes in the closed session could not have their opponents or their critics fall into line on the floor is truly remarkable. As long as that goes on, obviously, this could extend a very long time. And those Republicans from more institutionalists or from more competitive districts, they do have that option. I mean, they have the option of aligning with the Democrats to pick sort of a bipartisan speaker. I think it's going to have to go further into chaos before they are truly willing to countenance that.
Well, 3 weeks so far of unprecedented actions. There could be still more in that category soon. Ron Brownstein, great to see you as always. Thank you. Kate?
Coming up for us, police in Detroit, Michigan are searching for a suspect and a motive after a local synagogue leader was found stabbed to death outside of her home. We have an update on this for you. We'll be back.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8.
So sorry, a female synagogue leader was stabbed to death. Was it a hate crime? A song by Paul Beckman, Pauline song. Also the new and first leader of humankind in the free world. Again, there's a possibility that I might be moaning or groaning due to the agony and suffering I'm experiencing from diverticulitis right now, even though I'm treating it, but it's still painful. Oh. Oh. Created October 23rd, 2023. Or is it October 22nd? I think it's October 23rd. Yes, it is. So sorry am I that a synagogue leader was stabbed to death. So sorry am I, girl. So sorry am I, and the rest of the world, I'm sure, that a female synagogue leader was killed. Was it a hate crime? What else could it be? A hate crime against Jewish people or Israel? I'm so sorry. So sorry, girl, am I that you died. I may not have known you, I may not have met you, but I heard about you, and I'm sure you did so much good for the community. A synagogue leader, female synagogue leader, stabbed to death. Must have been so painful. Here I am experiencing pain right now from diverticulitis myself, but I'm sure the cut of steel going through the skin into the body, touching the organs, the veins, the blood vessels, the muscles, the bone, and it must have been repeated. So sorry am I, girl. I hope you didn't have to suffer alone. I'm so sorry. I apologize on behalf of humanity, of humankind, of those who err and have taken life and used it in such awful ways as to make other people suffer, while still probably getting away with it. He might even try to make others suffer. Likely he got away, because I don't think I've heard that he's been caught. He or she, whoever it be. It should not have happened. It should not have happened. Friends and family mourn beautiful and pure synagogue leader killed in Detroit. Oh, woman, girl, I'm so sorry it happened to you. Let's turn up the sound and hear more of what's going on about your story. Oh, 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 ooh.
For starters, when people see that headline, Detroit synagogue leader found stabbed to death, it makes people want to jump to conclusions.
So sorry, girl.
They say they just don't have, at least right now, specifically the police chief.
So sorry, girl.
In a statement that they put out, that the investigation into the death
So sorry, girl.
is ongoing. At this time, however, no evidence has surfaced.
So sorry,
suggesting that this
girl.
crime was motivated by anti-Semitism, but also they didn't include.
Was it hate or anti-Semitism? So sorry, girl.
Questions we have. 40-year-old Samantha Wool was found stabbed outside of her home Saturday morning. Police say they followed a trail of blood from her body to her home, which is where they believe this killing happened. They don't have a suspect, at least that they've announced, and
No suspect yet for the brutal murder. You coward. Coward. Go ahead and cower. You'll be caught soon. Authorities will find you. And you'll pay for your deed. So sorry, girl.
Samantha Wool may have been the nicest person
So sorry, girl.
or will ever be in my lifetime. Sam did more for our community, our state, our world, our lives, in her short time here on Earth than most will ever accomplish in 1,000 lifetimes over. And her killer will not rob us of the memory of her joy and warmth and kindness that she leaves.
Catch her killer. Catch 'em, boys. Catch 'em. Catch 'em, authorities. Find 'em and make 'em pay. So, girl, synagogue leader of the Jewish faith.
27-year-old Israeli American is leaving the United States behind to volunteer as a medic in Israel. Much more ahead.